Now you're going to see on your screen some map samples, and as you're looking at that, I'm going to read to you. Going to cover a few abbreviated cases for you to get an idea. So profiling your athlete, assessing potential. That's what I'm calling this section. Here are some abbreviated evaluation notes taken from three different case studies and a sample mapping, as you can see on the screen. One map is what I refer to as the blank canvas. The faded lines are the standard aspect zones representing the ideal horse. The 6 zones are divided by the locations where naturally occurring century lead changes take place. Again, we're going to go over again what we covered in the beginning, just so we have it hammered home here. The 6 zones are divided by the locations where naturally occurring century lead changes take place. The second map that you'll see on your screen depicts the psychocentric portrait of a horse, the completed map. Developed over the course of their evaluation, this map, representing the horse's actual degree of sensory soundness, is overlain upon the standard ideal to show the degree of alignment and zone functionality. So it basically, like I said earlier in the video, what I'm doing is I have a template, a standardized template, and then the actual map. So you have the standardized sensory system through the natural, herd structure of like what every horse should be divided into if it was perfect. Then we have the psychocentric, the actual reality of the said horse that we're looking at. And by laying that over top of the ideal, it gives me a chance to see what, where, when, and why we're out of skew, what's going on, and we can see how far out of alignment that we are. The further out of alignment, the more problems that we're going to run into. But it also helps us to identify ways that we're going to fix the horse. Now, I'm going to give some samples here, again, some abbreviations. And again, you can look at this on the blog as well to see it in more clarity. But I just want to read a couple of things to you here from some cool cases. All right, from 4th level dressage and up, for my dressage folks. 4th level dressage and up, the horse needs high functioning sensory lead changes, and sensory lead change A, D, E, F. Take a look at the map. Dressage people, high functioning sensory lead changes need to be in A, D, E, and F, with minimum rating of OK or average in sensory lead change B and sensory lead change C. Very, very important if you want to go 4th level dressage or up into the upper levels in international competition. Balance is important. Balance between zones 2 and 6 and zones 3 and 5. Value of A in zone 1. Value of C in zone 4 with corresponding composite sensory soundness score of at least 75. So the sensory soundness score, everything combined, needs to be at least 75. All right. And then I give you the values. How good do they need to be? How efficient do they need to be in these different zones? And how efficient do they need to be in the various sensory lead changes locations? This is extremely important. And this is something that cannot be undervalued if you're going to buy a dressage horse, if you're trying to train, picking the right horse for the right competition. Here's a pro tip. Did you know that high functioning sensory lead changes are an absolute must for the upper level dressage? Absolute must. All right, if I'm going to evaluate for you a dressage prospect, one of the first things I'm going to be checking out is how well do they sensory lead change, because they have to be able to do that very, very, very well to help them manage the stresses, the stressful demands, and the performance demands of that particular discipline. Moving on to show jumpers. Again, this is an example of how much value you have in sensory mapping for every discipline. Let's take a look at show jumpers. Show jumpers at intermediate into advanced levels need a minimum value of B in zone 6, 1, and 2, with high functioning sensory lead changes in E and F. Again, they have to have intermediate into advanced levels need a minimum value of B in zone 6, 1, and 2, with high functioning sensory lead changes in E and F. Average efficiency in sensory lead changes A and D are fine, and a corresponding composite sensory soundness score of at least 68. All right, a lot of information here in this small spot. Again, when you have a full map and a full report, this is all broke down for you in much detail. But this is the abbreviated form for you to take a look at. I'm going to read that again for my show jumpers, and you can look at the map. Intermediate into advanced levels need a minimum value of B in zone 6, 1, and 2, with high functioning century lead changes in E and F, average efficiency in century lead change A and D, and a corresponding composite century soundness score of at least 68. All right, so if I'm evaluating your horse, your show jumper, these are the things, this is the baseline I want if you want to be intermediate or advanced or beyond. This is your starting point. This is the baseline. What I'm giving you here is a brief synopsis of the baseline that you need for your 4th level dressage horse and up, your intermediate into advanced levels of show jumping and up. And here's a pro tip about the successful show jumper. Did you know that the successful show jumper has a minimum, at minimum, a 3-to-1 century clearance ratio in zone 1? That's 3-to-1, all right? The successful show jumper needs to clear space in the forward aspect in that zone 1 3 times faster than the body is moving, 3 times faster. So that cushion is very wide, okay? That's your successful show jumper. That's the other thing I'm going to be checking for a show jumper is what is the interpretive ratio in that zone. Okay, they have to clear space and have to maintain a cushion. If that cushion does not have enough space between mind and body, guess what? Your jumping is going to be very much compromised. This means that the century system is clearing space 3 times faster than their physical motion. This is optimum fluency, keeping the mind ahead of the body. I'm going to read that again. It's very important. The successful show jumper has, at minimum, a 3-to-1 century clearance ratio in zone 1. This means that their century system is clearing space 3 times faster than their physical motion. This is optimum fluency, people. Keeping a mind ahead of the body. Optimum fluency. Okay? And it keeps you safe. You know, no one likes to get tipped off. Let's take a look at what do I have here? Here's something I was just looking at this, and I wanted to see where I should put this in. I'm just going to mention it right now. We're talking about the dressage horse in the century lead changes, but to that effect, you know, over the course of my career so far, I have had a chance to be involved with thousands of thoroughbred racehorses, flat racing around the world, and have evaluated thousands of horses, thousands and thousands of thoroughbred horses. And one of the most consistent things I've ever found with a thoroughbred racehorse is that in order for them to do an efficient physical lead change, especially under performance stress, they have to be able to do a efficient century lead change under the same stresses. The century lead change precedes the physical action. Very, very important. Okay, that's something that you just have to remember. The mind leads the body. Right, and there's a great example of that. When I evaluate racehorses and it didn't change leads coming down the lane. Okay, it got stuck. Why did it get stuck? It was a mental block. There was a block, not a bridge. Okay, again, you need to be the bridge, not the block. Let's take a look at eventing. I have a lot of eventing clients. Eventing is a pretty awesome sport. The training level eventing horse needs balance between zones 3 and 5, a value of B in zone 1 and zone 2 with a zone 6 value of C. High functioning century lead change in century lead change E and F. And average century lead changes in A and D with a corresponding composite century soundness score of 50. Doesn't seem that high, right? There's a reason for that. Again, eventing. Horse needs a balance between zones 3 and 5, a value of B in zone 1 and zone 2 with a zone 6 value of C. High functioning century lead change and century lead change area E and F, and an average century lead change in A and D. Again, their corresponding composite century soundness score needs to be at least 50. All right. Again, this is pretty cool. You get this, all this information, this legend, these symbols, if you will, and you apply it to your map, and your horse really comes into focus. It's pretty fun, along with, of course, your big report that you get with it. Here's a pro tip. Did you know that the choice century soundness score for the eventing horse is 70? It's also the best score for working equitation. Why? Because this is the best cross-training psychology to have owing to the athletic malleability of the psyche in this range. Again, you want, in your eventing horse, you want a horse that is not going to be too forceful in their training. It's going to take their training and take their learned behaviors, but also be able to have a lot of versatility with them then because of the discipline demands and the multiple discipline demands. So they have to have some cross training. The cross training psychology is really right in the 70 range. In that range, it's very, very good. Again, I'll say this again. The choice Century Soundness score for the eventing horse is 70. It's also the best score for working equitation. This is because this is the best cross training psychology. Okay, this is the horse's psychology who's malleable. You can work it, you can nurture it, you can massage it, you can enrich it in many different ways. And they have some flexibility in their learned behaviors. They're not going to be so rigid because their psychology isn't moving as fast as the upper level numbers. Okay, but it's moving faster than the below average. So you're right there in the middle. So you have the ideal horse for what you want to do. Okay, now of course, these examples are greatly abbreviated bits of a much larger picture. A full Century Soundness mapping and evaluation profile consists of a comprehensive written report explaining the results. You get zone-by-zone details along with recommendations for moving forward with your goals in mind. Again, I want you to send me when you send me your video. I like you to tell me about your horse. I want to know what your goals are. That helps me see, okay, do we have realistic goals or not? This includes the horse's self-portrait translated into patterns of motion, which we're going to get into next, which it's a really cool thing. The enrichment diagram. Let me say that again. This includes the horse's self-portrait translated into patterns of motion, which I call the enrichment diagram, through which you will learn how to be the bridge and not the block. This is really cool stuff, and we're going to cover that here coming up.